Hi, I'm Frank Messina, and this is the July 18, 2023 meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission. I have a couple of announcements before we begin. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anybody else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Seeing none. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law GL 30A 20 until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder for that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may doing so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Conference ID 547-988-40 #, or by joining the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Next item is the roll call. Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Burlingame?
Here.
Mr. Aikman?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Ms. Porter?
Here.
Ms. Tennyson?
Here.
And the chair is here. I would like to note that Robert Stevens, who was newly appointed to the one alternate position, is online, but Robert hasn't been sworn in yet, so he will be acting as a visitor to the meeting. Welcome, Robert. Okay. And I also want to note that both Janet Tennyson and Sandy Porter were appointed from their alternate positions to full-time members of the commission. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay. We have rather a long agenda, 9 applications. So I would hope that we would work as efficiently as possible and possibly stop about 11:30, 12 o'clock and take a half-hour break and give ourselves and the fellows in the control room a chance to have a snack and then hopefully reconvene the meeting and wrap up as soon as we can. I just also want to comment that what I'd like to do to try and facilitate the meeting process in terms of more structure, because we tend to be informal in our process and discussions. Have the applicant make his presentation as we usually do. Any staff reports if we have them. Questions from the Historical Commission members, just questions, not opinions, just questions. And then letters from the public, comments from the public if there are. And I want to close the hearing, okay? Effectively close the hearing, and then we'll deliberate amongst ourselves and then take the necessary motions. All right? If that's agreeable to all, we'll do that. I believe our rules and regs have that in the process, but we tend sometimes to wander. I think that's the chair's fault. At our next meeting in on August again? 15th, we will convene the meeting and also then reorganize the commission. The positions of chair, vice chair, clerk are always available. I got nobody raising their hands. Okay, all right, well, we will start. Okay, the first application, and by the way, I'm going in the order of that the applications are in the agenda, so if anybody has any complaints, see the young lady to my left. Okay, first application is 23028, 739 Crowell Road. This is continued from our 6/20/23 meeting. Please introduce yourself again, and we will then proceed
Good morning. Jamie Norcross representing the owner, Damon Wirtanen. Damon is here with me today in the blue shirt in the back. Also here with us today is Kevin Donovan, who is a structural engineer from Coastal Engineering and prepared the report that we filed after the last meeting.
Let me just clarify to members of the public what's going on here. This application was heard at our 6:20 meeting. The Historical Commission, I forgot the minutes. The Historical Commission passed a motion that the subject 739 Crowell Road was in fact historically significant. There was discussion relative to the structural integrity of it. There was an engineering report which the applicant had at the last minute and didn't provide, and was provided to us. Subsequent to that, I asked the building inspector, Jay Briggs, to also do a review of the house in terms of its structural integrity as it relates to condemnation or not. And we have that report, and we have some letters from the public. Sorry, Jamie.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. That's correct. So you did vote that it was historically significant. The question of the demolition delay was left open at that time. We had expressed our opinion based on our diligence that the property was not structurally sound, and after years of neglect, unfortunately had rotted and decayed to such a point it was not salvageable to be reused or incorporated into a new structure. And so several members of the commission asked for some verification of that opinion. We had already hired Kevin Donovan earlier that month to provide the report. Unfortunately, we didn't get it till just before the meeting, no fault of Kevin's. And so we did not submit that until after the last meeting, but we did submit that right after your last hearing. So hopefully you've all had plenty of time to digest his findings. I'm just going to run through a couple of the highlights in a moment. As you mentioned, the commission members expressed a desire to have someone from the town, the building commissioner, come out and verify and review Kevin's report and findings. And so Kevin and I met with Jay Briggs a couple weeks ago, and Jay has submitted a letter as part of the record today. A third action item that Mr. Wirtanen took upon himself to try and address, as expressed by some members of the commission, was to engage with a salvage company to see what, if anything, could be saved from inside the structure. And we received the list from Christina. Mr. Wirtanen, there's probably 5 or 6 Cape-based companies. He called all the companies. First couple drove by, didn't have really any desire to go in, or did go in and didn't have any desire to take anything. We did find Atlantic Workshop came in last week, and there's a letter that we submitted yesterday that we received. And Scott at Atlantic Workshop said there are some items that he would be able to take.
Scott has worked with us in the past.
And so you'll see his letter. It's in line with the description of the property provided by Kevin and Jay, but there are some pieces he said he could repurpose as part of his workshop, and Damon is happy to work with Scott and Atlantic Workshop to allow that to take place. If I may just touch on some of the main findings of Kevin's report. Christina, do you have that available for the screen?
Now, which report are you going to refer to?
Kevin's structural engineering report.
The Coastal Engineering report.
Coastal engineering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and if you don't mind just scrolling down, Kevin provides a diagram for the building. Oh, right there. So Kevin, I think it's helpful because he broke down as part of his report, he broke down the building into several sections. And so, just to run through this with you, section 1 right here, this is the part of the historical section, the antique. This is closest to Crowell Road, and that's 2 stories in the front, or at least 1.5 stories, and there's a second level up there and upstairs. Section 2 is also part of the antique, just behind it. Section 3 is the very back portion of the antique with the Cape Cod cellar. And then once you get past that, that's the more recent vintage of the structure. You have the screened-in porch area, the garages, and then above the garage in the rear, there's an apartment, which I don't think anybody's probably seen. That was built, I think, in the 1970s and 80s. And Kevin's findings, and Kevin is here to answer any questions that you may have based on his report. But essentially, section 1, he found numerous holes in the floor. The floorboards are rotting, decayed, insects, infestation. The second story, we walked up there. It's a little bit scary. It's very spongy on the floor. The roof has a hole in it, several holes in it. the sills, he was able to take his phone and take photographs underneath the floor on the first level. And the only foundation there is basically sits on these sills that sit on pieces of rock. And then over time, it's settled off that rock. And the sills themselves, as Kevin saw based on his visit and his investigation, is that those have also started to rot, such that it's not sitting on any sort of sustainable base anymore. Going back into section 2, Kevin found there are more areas of rotted wood. There also are areas on both sides where the floors are actually jutting up at a pretty significant angle, indicating to Kevin that there is, again, that it's fallen off what little foundation it has, resulting in these boards becoming significantly off level. Kevin also discovered back in these sections, at some point in time, prior to Damon's ownership, the sheetrock is off the wall, so the framing is exposed back in here. And it's rotted, it's decayed. Several sections, horizontal beams are bowed significantly, such that it's, in Kevin's opinion, quite unsafe. And so, Kevin, who has over 20 years experience as a structural engineer, determined that there's really nothing structural that can be maintained from the property. And there's each component, as a result of the decay, the rot, the negligence over the years, is past the point of being salvageable. And I think that is a sentiment also expressed by Jay Briggs, who visited the property, as noted in his letter. And I'd point out that Jay said, "While I was touring the premises, I was looking for historic materials that could be saved or reincorporated into a new structure, but I didn't observe anything that would be worthwhile." And those were Jay's findings based on his visit at the site. And then lastly, as I mentioned, there's a letter from Scott Feen in Atlantic Workshop, which just came in yesterday, so you may not have had an opportunity to review that. However, I would point out in his letter, Scott says, "My first impression was that the neglect for the home and property is significant and widespread. Much of the structure was insect infested and beyond reasonable repair. After inspecting the property, I believe that during demolition, there are some beams and planks that could be utilized at Atlantic Workshop as raw resources. He's of the opinion, with the exception of a handful of items in the house, there is nothing that could be salvageable for rebuilding of a new home. Close to 80% of the structure has either been destroyed by insects, rot, and mold." So that was Scott's findings. And so what I think you see is 3 different opinions from 3 different people with experience in this field, whether building, structural integrity, or antiques, who have found that it's past the point of salvage, other than a few items that Scott's able to incorporate into his workshop for repurposing. And so Damon has done a lot of diligence, my client, in terms of trying to see what could be saved at the property, what could be reused. And unfortunately, this is it. And if this was 30 years ago when this property was sold, maybe some of it could be saved, maybe a lot of it could have been saved, but nothing was taken care of out here. And as a result, you see a letter from the neighbor across the street expressing that it was just allowed to decay over years and years of time. And that's unfortunate, but we're at the point now, we need to look at the facts as they exist. And the facts as they exist now is that the house is past the point of being able to be saved. So, Mr. Chairman, that would be our presentation. Again, Kevin's here to answer any questions that any of the members may have relative to his report as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. We have a conundrum, a dilemma, and, we hit it on a number of things. And unfortunately, this application hits home on 2 or 3 points that the commission is working on and doing, and we've got to be careful to separate, that activity with this, from this application. But I know you know what I'm talking about, the issue of benign neglect of properties in the town. And then the issue, which is, streetscape and what happens to the community and stuff like that. So I think, we're the commission, if I could speak, for the commission, so to speak, a lot of us were focusing on the main building, the most historic. I mean, the application, it's not 1920. There's no question this building was not built in 1920. I mean, you didn't put Cape Cod Cellars in a 1920s building, okay?
No,
So-
the application says 1839. I think
Yeah, I know, but no, some
Kevin
of the-
went off the assessor's records, which says
Right,
1920.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So, we know that the original building was built in and then there were all kinds of, grew like topsy. So, that's the concern. and I appreciate the comprehensiveness of the report. Sorry we couldn't do it the first time, but, we'll then, just have the commission, ask questions. I'm going to start go down the line. Sandy? Any questions?
Jamie, have you had an opportunity to see?
Can you speak up, Sandy, and move closer to the microphone? Sorry, Sandy.
That's okay. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking at a report that Protect Our Past Conditions Assessment. Have you seen this?
I did see it yesterday afternoon. It was emailed to me by Ms. Briggs.
Okay. How would you feel if they came to do an in-depth survey?
Could you speak closer to the mic, Sandy? I'm sorry.
How would you feel if they came to do an in-depth survey?
Well, I think we'd be a little bit frustrated at this point, just because we filed back in May, bought the property in April, filed in May, had a hearing on June 20th. Prior to that, we had Kevin come out and do his structural engineering report. And at that meeting, the commission members said, okay, fine, we want to see the report. We want somebody from the town to go in and look at it. And that's what we let have happen. Jay went out and did a report. So I appreciate the work that they do, but I think at this point, to go back to that, I don't think my client's willing to restart that process.
Thank you.
I realized I already screwed up my own agenda. We're going to read the staff reports first, okay? You noted in your presentation, but let me read that for the members of the public. In response to the report from the engineering company, Coastal Engineering, I asked Jay Briggs, our building inspector, please find the attached letter on my inspection of the structure, the above reference address. And we do that as a matter of fact. Whenever we have a building in question that the applicant maintains it's going to be falling down, the determination we make, well, falling down, what does that mean? Is the building going to be condemned? If the building's going to be condemned, then we're done. Then it takes over. But as long as he does not, make that determination, then we are then charged with the concept, well, what can be saved from an historic preservation point of view? This is to us on July 12th. Dear Commission members, I was asked to perform an on-site inspection of the above reference property by Frank Messina to evaluate the structure. On June 29, 2023 at 11 o'clock, I met with the owner, attorney Jamie Cross, and structural engineer Kevin Donovan of Coastal Engineering. Mr. Donovan is a structural engineer that performed the visual assessment on June 9, 2023, from which he prepared a report dated June 18, 2023. We went through every room of the structure and noticed several areas of falling structural components in the floors, walls, ceiling, and roof system. There were areas of rotted and decaying wood and from water intrusion, due primarily to lack of maintenance, while many of the structural components are undersized to code requirements today. While I was touring the premises, I was looking for historic materials that could be saved or reincorporated into a new structure. I didn't observe anything that would be worthwhile. The structures are uninhabitable in the current condition, but do not appear to pose a threat to the surrounding structures. For the protection of the public wandering in and getting hurt, the structure should be boarded up and locked, okay? Or fencing installed around the perimeter so no entry can be made. I am not mandating that the structure be demolished immediately, as I believe safety can be maintained during any potential demolition delay. Should the commission members determine, I gotta read that. I believe the safety can be maintained during any potential demolition delay should the commission members determine that action is necessary. Okay, that's the only staff report we have per se. The other reports are from the applicant. We also have a report from, which is like from Protect Our Past, which we have done in the past at other buildings. We asked David Ecker to take a look at the building. Let me read that. This is also dated July 12th, I believe. The site visit was conducted by Fred Ecker of the Historic Preservation for Protect Our Past on July 15th to assess the condition of the house, contributing buildings located at 739 Crowell Road. The site visit was limited to what could be viewed from the exterior only. This early structure contains certain predates the second quarter of the 19th century, but the exact date cannot be determined without interior assessment of the nails, saw nails, and marks. The structure was a half-cape center chimney, including a very early addition, if not original. The home is timber frame construction with exposed corner posts. The original center chimney and large kitchen addition have both been removed and replaced with smaller modern chimneys. Please see additional details of the visit below. A Greek Revival half-cape was attached and later the carriage house. The home dates to the second quarter of the 19th century, probably earlier. Detached barn added later, timber frame construction with exposed corner posts of the interior, 1.5-story tall, original sashes, 3x3 and 6x6 on the sides. The early window sashes are original. Notice mortise and tendons, window casings on the front facade. The existing bay window was clearly added at a later date. Originally was a center chimney cape. Original chimney is gone and a smaller chimney was installed. Kitchen addition is later. Greek Revival trim on the original parlor. Original wide white floorboards. Interior includes doors with raised floor panels, interior board and batten doors. Parlor includes nice wainscoting and Greek Revival chair rail molding. The house is definitely early than 1920. I know the difference in the date, as indicated in the town real estate property card. The house has clearly been neglected for a number of years and indicated by dense vegetation around it. The structure deserves a more in-depth survey prior to approving a demolition permit. Protector Pass will arrange to be completed pro bono if asked. Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out of the way, put it into the record, and then we proceed. Sandy. Sandy, we did that. Okay. Steph?
I have no questions.
Okay. Steve?
I have several.
Steve, can you start over? You have several questions?
Yes, I do. As I expressed at our last meeting, I have serious concerns about any demolition of this property without further study. It's unique, certainly unique to the neighborhood. It's a unique design. Most of what we've seen in terms of examination is that you wouldn't want to live there, which is understandable. But it is a very unique structure. Certainly in its neighborhood, it's unusual. I would like to see whatever we could do to make certain that that property retains some of its character moving forward. I would ask if the architect is here or available.
No, the architect's not available today.
And I can ask what efforts were made by the architect to incorporate either the design or the actual structure. See from the map, see from your plans, is a very, very large home, not in keeping with the neighborhood whatsoever. And that concerns me.
Was there, you wanted me to answer the question, or?
No.
But you asked the question, I can't answer, I mean.
Not allowed, because
Is it a question? Well, fairness, Steve.
I did ask, I asked if the architect had looked at the idea of somehow utilizing this structure or replication of it in his plans for the new home.
So in terms of utilizing the existing, the determination was made that the condition was so poor that it could not be used as part of a new structure.
When was that decision made?
As part of the design process, as my client was going through.
So that was before the engineer made his report?
The engineer's report just confirmed what they had already thought.
Okay.
And then just to answer your second question, no, they did not look at mimicking the existing design. It was not part of that process, obviously, from what you've seen from the plans.
Very well. There was an interesting comment from the Protect Our Past that a more in-depth survey was appropriate before we made a final decision on what we do with this property. I like that thought because I'm passionate about preserving that house in some fashion, or at least as much of it as we can in some substantial way. To move with that recommendation in front of us, certainly be my hope that we would postpone all of this until that survey was done. I have not seen any examinations I have not seen any reports presented to us either by the town building official or the coastal engineering that makes any effort to what can be done. It's mostly very negative in what can't be done. For such an old, unique property, I don't think that's adequate for us. We have tossed around the idea, and I know that your previous comment about we shouldn't cloud that discussion of regarding the neglect of houses and how it affects applications and things of that nature. But it's obviously a concern of ours as to what happens as a consequence of neglect. Is it a free pass to demolish a house? Is it something that ought to be penalized in some way to prevent it from happening again? I guess when we have our discussion, I'll have some more comments and questions. Thank you.
Just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just follow up.
Sure.
In terms of the neglect, I mean, I think this is a bit of an outlier. It's not 15, 20 years of nothing happening to the property. It's decades that it sat there. Not by Mr. Wirtanen, it was by two prior owners who owned it since the 60s and did next to nothing for the property. So I don't think it's an example that's gonna get followed in the future by other property owners. I mean, this is a real outlier in that regard. And I think in terms of having we did what was asked last time, and then to have us do another review, I think people are looking for a new answer that they haven't gotten yet, but we've provided 3 opinions, including Atlantic Workshop, who is a survey company, as to the condition. So I think having another survey is just unfair to the applicant at this point.
Yeah, sorry, Steve. I'm sorry, I've got too much paper in front of me. I apologize. I should have read, even though it's not a staff report, the memo which you referred to, which Scott Feen, and I'll read at this point. This is from Scott Feen, Atlantic Workshop. As a quick introduction, I'm an owner of Atlantic Workshop and have over 15 years of expertise repurposing the Cape Cod points of historical interest into handmade furniture, light fixtures, and sculptures, with projects including JFK's original summer residence, Marconi Lighting Station, and the Edward Gorey House, just to name a few. I pride myself in attention to detail from design to finishes. Sounds like a commercial, Scott. Okay. GHW Realty contacted me to look at the recently purchased house, 739 Crowell. My first impression that there was neglect of the home and property is significant and widespread. Much of the structure was insect infested and beyond reasonable repair. After inspecting the property, I believe that during the demolition, at some point, beams and planks could be utilized by Atlantic Workshop as raw resources. That said, is my opinion that the exception of a handful of items, the house, there is nothing that could be salvageable for rebuilding of a new home. Close to 80% of the structure has either been destroyed by insects, rot, and molding. Thank you, Scott Feen, Atlantic Workshop. We have a little bit of history with Scott in terms of houses which were demolished, in which he does take material from it. Okay, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the owner is present, and I have a question for him. We've seen the design of this new building that there is proposed to be put on this property, and it, in my opinion, is not traditional. It's more like many of the new expanded mansionization properties that are being built in Chatham. And my question is, would you consider an expanded cape design, which would be more in keeping with the cape that's existing? Because there are many of those that have been expanded over the years in Chatham and are available to view. And could you have your architect maybe reconsider the design for the house there?
Just introduce yourself a second, just for the record.
Good morning, everyone. Damon Wirtanen, owner of 739 Crowell Road.
Thank you.
I can absolutely, review what we were trying to achieve is conform. Currently, the home is non-conforming to the property. So what we were really focused on is making sure that we conform the new home to the property and meet all the current setbacks and stay within the building envelope. The current property as an expanded cape really goes outside the building envelope pretty significantly. So we wanted to bring it, shorten it up and make it a little bit more compact as far as the
Could I ask, let me continue.
foundation.
Let me ask you a question. I guess what he's saying, if I understand it, is the reason you go to this gambrel roof or whatever you call this thing is just to get more square footage on the same floor space?
Correct. You're able to get full height on the second floor rather than on a cape where you're gonna have a lot more slanted
So Don,
walls,
I'm
ceilings.
sorry, if he were to redesign, just for clarification for myself, what he's saying, if he was to design as a cape house, he would have to increase his floor plan, footprint, thank you. And then you would have to go to zoning.
No, we have to go to zoning anyway.
Oh.
So we were
what-
just-
What's the thing?
Well, this isn't the only board that can be difficult, Frank. So,
I understand, but no, but
So-
I'm sorry, I mean, I'm interpreting what he said as,
the goal was you go to zoning, the less nonconformities you have, the zoning board generally
okay,
views
so
it.
you wanted to, one less checkboard for the zoning board, when he sits here and,
Yeah, a little less grist for the mill to object to the
Okay.
project. That was the goal. I think part of it is getting it in and conforming with the
Conforming.
setbacks and the building coverage. That was what Damon was expressing on that.
all right, so what you're saying in answer to Don's question, I apologize, Don, nice shirt. You would consider that?
Yeah,
Looking at it-
100%.
Looking at a more traditional design?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Don, I just wanted to clarify myself. Christina? No. Mr. Lear?
I guess I agree with Mr. Burlingame's philosophy and approach, but I'm inclined to think at this point that they have addressed those concerns by the three opinions that they got, so no questions.
Thank you. Janet?
I agree with Mr. Lear, no questions.
Okay. We have one letter from the public in addition to that. And again, my question, so I guess I have questions. You know, I appreciate the fact that you would reconsider it, because as I reconsider the design, I think although we don't have purview, I want to be very clear that, this is not the zoning board. We don't say yes or no relative to your design. That's the zoning board who can talk about your design. We often say we don't have design responsibility. But by the same token, we do feel we have responsibility. I think it was well put by Steve in terms of the neighborhood and what we're doing and this type of building, which is not really historical in nature. And that's kind of what drives us. Technically, I guess, do you have to show us what you're going to do to the property if it's demolished? No, technically you don't. But we do appreciate the fact that an applicant will do that. So I'm inclined to feel the same way. I would like to do whatever we can to encourage, and that's the word. A demolition delay technically is not punitive. It's a delay. It's a delay to ask you to reconsider what you're doing. And A, reconsider the demolition, and B, if you can't, because you presented a lot of evidence of saying, well, I don't really think we could incorporate it. We do that sometimes, as you're well aware, Jamie. We get an historic structure and we demolish, 9/10 of the building that's not historic, but the applicant will keep the historic element of the building and repurpose it or remodel it and then put his addition on in the rear, and that's fine. But in this case, I think what's being asked is, would you actually look at your design? And I think that might be a way to accomplish it. I have enough questions. Yes, Steve?
Quick question, Christina. Thank you. I need help in many ways. But in any event, Christina, what are our options, or Frank, in terms of continuing this matter further, for further investigation, particularly by Protect Our Past and their evaluation, which
Let me answer the question. We didn't give her a new job. If the applicant wants to, we need the applicant's permission. Traditionally, we just don't continue it ourselves. If we ask the applicant to continue, we need a reason to continue the meeting. So it's the applicant's choice to agree to continue or not. If the applicant doesn't want to continue, then we're forced to make a decision.
No, well, we are within the time constraints that are,
Oh, no, 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 no. That time
What-
constraint is to hear the application the first time.
can you explain exactly what that is? You talked about 65 days, and that runs from what date?
It's 65 days after she receives the application.
And is that to initiate the hearing?
Yes.
It's not to complete the hearing. So we do have the option of continuing this further, particularly for a specific purpose.
Yes.
And I wouldn't just do it just to be arbitrary, but
Right.
because I'm really anxious to see what Protect Our Past experts can tell us about this property.
The applicant needs to agree to a continuance.
Yeah, but Steve, let me just give you another slant on it. We have a demolition delay, all right, we demolish, we say 18 months, but the applicant can come back at any time, and we reconsider it. So
Yes.
effectively, it's not over, until that time, that the demolition delay, the determination is expired.
I appreciate that, but because I have this concern about the POP making this offer to us, and we've seen in the past that it's been very effective and appropriate and well done, that we not avoid it when we have that opportunity. I would like to see this matter continued for one reason or another in order for us to be able to accomplish that.
All right, before we make a motion, let me just finish up the thing. We have one letter from the public, from a Robert Berg, 730 Carl Road. I guess he's a next-door neighbor. I'm writing as an abutter who has for the past 32 years lived diagonally across from 730 Carl Road. Since moving here in 1991, I personally witnessed this property, which was never in good condition, steadily decay into a state of abject squalor. Deterioration, a result of a complete and total neglect, has resulted in a compromised roof, broken windows, crumbling walls, rotting floors, and ultimately the structure which are both unsafe and unfit for human habitation. I trust the Historical Commission, who presently inspected the property, will concur with these observations. As a professional antique dealer for the past 32 years, I make my living preserving history, a goal which obviously we obviously share in common. I will point, however, that not all things are old or worthy of keeping. In my opinion, structure 739 falls squarely into this category. They are absolutely positively not worth saving. In summary, I fully support the demolition of these buildings at 739 and enthusiastically look forward to whatever plans of a new owner has for his property as a much-needed, most welcome, long overdue improvement to the neighborhood. Robert Berg, 739 Carr Road. I think I met you at I think you were here? No, okay. I think I met this gentleman at the site visit across the street. Okay. I'm going to, any member of the public wish to speak for or against the application here or in, online? Pardon?
Ellen Briggs.
Ellen Briggs raising a hand? Okay, thank you very much. Annie? All right, Ellen, introduce yourself. I'm glad you can see that. I can't. Okay. Ellen, you're muted.
My apologies. Sorry. Ellen Briggs, Protect Our Past. I would like to note that we have Fred Ecker with us as well, and would like for the opportunity for him to speak to this. I admire the efforts of the client to have the house reviewed for its historic integrity and for its salvageability. However, what we find often is that there's not an historic preservationist or a preservation architect who's looking at it. And that's what Fred Ecker is. So I would like him to be able to speak to and address what was brought up by the reports.
Okay, Fred, could you please introduce yourself formally?
My name is Fred Ecker. I am not an architect. I'm an architectural conservator, quite a bit of a difference. I specialize in working with historic fabric and museum quality buildings all around the country. I do understand why somebody from Atlantic Woodshop would not want to salvage anything because there is powder post beetle damage. And that's typically not something you want in a piece of furniture, but it's something that can easily be taken care of by fumigating the house. So I think we need to throw that one out. I have not had the opportunity to get in the house. I was told I could look at it from the outside. You saw what I reviewed and what I was able to see through the windows, but that really wasn't a total review. I would really like the opportunity to go through the house again. I think somebody ought to do some history on this building because it's clearly early. We ought to find out who owned it, and there might be some significance there too. In my opinion, the house can be restored. It can be raised up on a new foundation like we see happening all the time, especially since the original chimneys are there. That makes it a whole lot easier. I believe there's enough salvageable material once the house is fumigated to go through a restoration process.
All right.
May I continue the time? May, please. I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, including the owner, that there are cultural, economic consequences for the destruction of historic properties in Chatham and on Cape Cod. That needs to be taken into account. Also, there are ecological consequences of demolition and new builds. I think Fred can speak to that. If the wood is salvageable, it's irreplaceable. The wood, well, I'm going to ask Fred to tell you where the new materials are being, about the new materials that are being used for new builds.
All
So
right,
Fred, I defer to you.
Ellen and Fred, I'm going to ask you to focus on 739, please.
Okay?
Thank you.
The other thing I think I ought to bring up is I just would hate to see this house become part of a landfill. There certainly are enough salvageable materials in this building to restore it. I know it's been looked at by engineers and I know it's been looked at by architects, but that's really not people that specialize in historic preservation. I've worked on many a building a lot worse than this one. It just depends on really what the focus should be and what the owner really wants.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just have a moment for.
Yeah, sure, go.
Okay.
Go.
I'd just like to ask Kevin to come up to, comments were made about, you can put it up, no matter what, it doesn't have a foundation, so if you're gonna keep it, you're gonna have to lift it up and put it on a foundation.
Yeah, I was going to address that.
I'd like
Okay,
Kevin to
fine.
express the challenges faced of trying to put this on a foundation, if I could.
I was actually going to ask that question relative to what your opinion was, but go.
Hello, Kevin Donovan, Coastal Engineering, structural engineer. Yeah, in going through this house, I asked myself those same questions. I said, what parts of this house could be saved, and what would that look like? The foundation, I would recommend not be reused. There's really little to it. And the sills that sit upon it and the floor systems, I think, are largely unsalvageable, particularly in those forward sections 1, 2, and 3, as outlined in the report from Coastal. So you're left to the next step if you were to try to salvage this, which is you've got to pick the house up in order to get a new foundation under there and a new floor system. The walls were exposed in section 3. They were not exposed in sections 1 or 2. So I don't have the benefit of being able to see what the wall framing looked like in sections 1 and 2.
Can you just, 1 and 2 again is the most historic, the one on the front?
Section 1 is the one closest to the street, and
Right.
then 2 and 3 go.
1, 2, and 3, we think are the original.
Right.
Essentially.
So that section 3, which does have exposed wall framing, gave me an opportunity to see what those walls are. And when I'm looking at these walls, I'm thinking any sort of house lift operation is going to need to grab onto these walls and use those walls to pick up the structure, to pick up the walls, to pick up the roof, any sort of attic space. or second floor space. The state of the walls in section 3 were so poor that that I saw evidence of bowing in both the I'm starting to lose track of what directions were north and south, but both side walls for that section 3 were so poor that they were significantly bowed, leading to me to believe that you've either got rotten sill or rotten or settling foundation in those areas, and the walls have literally cracked in some places or become misshaped. Not to mention that the construction was so light that, I mean, I think the wall framing, that we would call them studs nowadays, were spaced something to the order of like every 2.5 feet. So when I think, the reason I go through all of this is I think of that contractor coming in who's tasked with trying to grab onto these walls and pick them up in order to put a new foundation on. And I think there's just not enough there that is stable enough for a contractor to do that. Now, you can ask different contractors and get different opinions, but I've seen as recently as the last 12 to 18 months, 2 cases where similar houses have been asked, the question has come up, should we pick these houses up and put new foundations in? The first was down in Mashpee, and the contractor said, no, I can't do it. It's and I can report that the condition of those walls was better than what I'm seeing at 739 Crowell. So there's an example of where the contractor says the walls are just not stable enough to pick up this house.
Yep.
I have another example down in Sandwich where my opinion was that a new foundation was needed, and the walls were questionable. I'll put it that way. The contractor went ahead and did pick up the house. I was not involved in the house lift, but I did drive by, and the entire first floor ripped off of the walls. So now we have a first floor, or I shouldn't say we have, but now the owner has a first floor that's sitting on the bad foundation, and the house is picked up with temporary supports, and the entire first floor is ripped off. So these are some of the things that I was considering as I looked through the house. I think that any contractor who is charged with picking this house up and putting a new foundation on would find the condition of those walls to be more than challenging. You may find a contractor who says that they can do it, but I think the majority would say it's beyond.
Well, you know, we unfortunately or fortunately have a lot of experience with houses being lifted, and I think the one we just did on the Old Village, the iconic property in which, you know, he's installing steel, and I agree with you. He's installed a house that 1850 to be lifted, it would have to be rebuilt in the interior in order to lift it. You would have to structurally, you know, bring it modern day standards, probably put steel underneath it and to lift it.
That's right.
And I think what you're saying, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, it can be done, but it's a big job. I understand that.
Well, it's a big job, and what are you really doing?
I understand. It's a question of, I think we're dealing with, what is the integrity of what we're trying to save? Is it worth saving? Is it worth, trust me, we understand that we're not, if we go that way, we're not doing something lightly, that we understand there are not financial consequences. The same thing with an 18-month delay. Everything we do, everything we decide is financial consequences. So the decision this board has to make is what we're talking about potentially asking you to save worthwhile, or the alternative, which was put forward by Mr. Aikman, okay, we can't save it, but would you consider an alternative design? So, and I appreciate your comments, and I think your report made it very clear, you know, what you're saying, you know, but I just, for the record, want to say, it's not that you can't do it, It's just that it's very expensive, and there's a lot of danger in doing that, you know.
Well, I think
you
the
could
other point
lose
is
the whole
there's
thing.
not much, wouldn't be much left of what you're trying to
Understand.
save on the
Understand.
interior, once you get done with the.
Yes, do you have a quick question? Yeah. Yeah, turn it on.
Thank you. Not necessarily quick, but
Okay, not
your,
necessarily quick.
your assessment of the difficulty in lifting it, you really mean raising it from below as opposed to picking it up, is that correct?
Well, I don't think you'd be able to pick this house up from
That's-
below.
that's correct, but
I think the contractor would have to come in at the wall level and.
Usually they put steel braces in and lift it that way.
Well, there are a couple of different ways, and you've probably seen a number of these ways. So sometimes they come in with what's referred to as steel needle beams, and they come in under the first floor.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't think you could do that in this case because there's no way to access that and no good first floor framing to grab onto.
Well, obviously, we're talking to somebody who's not experienced with that, and
I'm sorry?
now this is not your field. You are an engineer examining the property for its structural assessment as opposed to whether or not it can be lifted or not.
Well, he's a structural engineer, Steve. I think that gives him credibility
I
to speak to
understand, but
it. And I
don't
think saying he
understand.
doesn't know what he's talking about is just plainly rude and inappropriate.
I don't think we,
Excuse me.
Steve, I don't think what we're saying, or questioning the individual's credentials as, questioning his credential as a structural engineer to lift the building?
His experience, he's seen,
Okay.
he drove by one recently.
That's not what he said, first of all,
Okay.
Steve.
Secondly, you make your comments based on section 3 of the property. Is that correct? You said the walls were available for inspection in section 3, not available in section 1 and 2. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So we don't know about the difficulty in terms of lifting sections 1 and 2, which is the more original of the property.
All right, Steve, can you get to a question quickly? We're gonna,
The question was whether
We need to-
his examination was based solely on section 3,
Right.
which is available, as opposed to section 1 and 2.
section 1 being the most historic, section 2 and 3 being the additions to that. Yes.
That's correct. This is balloon construction, as I would, or most people would understand it to be. That is, you've got framing that's based largely on the four corners of the property or the four corners of the building, structurally to lift it, to hold it together. It's not the construction of 2010 where you've got based everything on 2x4s or 2x6s. You're talking about 6x6, 8x8, corner posts, et cetera. What are the size of the corner posts in this property?
Steve, excuse me, Steve. We're getting into a level of detail from a structural perspective. I think it's a little bit outside it. I think the issue is made, and I think the point is made, that, yes, what the engineer said, he's focusing his comments on section 3, which is the third section of the building, and I asked the question, it's not the most historic structure.
That's correct.
So I agree, Steve. And
If I could just clarify, his report is section 1, 2, and 3, the
I
entire
understand.
building. The
I
only
understand.
visible walls are in
But
section 3.
we're not getting into the issue of, we're not structural engineers, and we can't evaluate that. Yeah,
I appreciate that. That's why I raised the question.
Right.
That we're not experts in the field, and I'm looking,
Exactly.
that's why I'm looking to see some additional examination of the property.
understand the point. Okay, guys, we're approaching an hour on this one, and we killed it. Now, I'm gonna cut off questions. We got members of the public speaking for and against the application. I would like to then just end this hearing and leave it at this. Sorry, Mr. Eckert, I think we understand where you're coming from. I don't think there's anything further at this particular point we want to discuss. So, my prerogative, we're closed, guys. How do we get back into this? I thought I closed it off, Jamie. Okay, moving right along. Let's go. We'll start it right and left. I think, go ahead, Steve. Want to make a motion?
I would make a motion.
No, you got to turn that on, Steve.
I'm going to leave it on. It's obvious I talk too much. I'm going to make a motion that we continue this for an additional 30 days for the purpose of protect our passed, do an examination of the property before we make a decision. I wish there was another way of doing that. If we impose a demolition delay in order to let that happen, that doesn't require it to happen, or even the opportunity. So that's why I'd like to continue it for the purpose of them doing an examination of the property for 30 days.
All right. There is a motion on the floor. I was hoping for a discussion, not necessarily a motion. But can I ask you to hold that motion? I know. Can I ask you to hold that motion or withdraw it until we look at the other options and motions?
Yes, you may, and I
All right, great.
will withdraw my motion temporarily.
Yeah, okay. What I'm getting for, guys, we have a number of options here that we can have. We have, from Don's perspective, you know, to put some kind of a delay in the application for the applicant to consider a redesign effort, okay? That's where Don is coming from. Don, am I stating that correctly? And then we have where Steve's coming from, which is, hold, we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to just wait till we get another engineer or another architect's or engineer's opinion relative to salvaging the primary house. So those are the two options that I think we could consider in terms of motions. I'd like to speak first to both of those options, and then we'll go around the table. Before we make a motion, I prefer Don's option, okay? Because I feel from a structural point of view, yes, we could potentially save that house, the first section. It can be done. We've done it before, and it can be done. Is it worthy of saving? Yeah, I probably think it is, but, you know, at what expense, you know? And that's why I would be more reasonable, in my view, is to go with Don's option. If the applicant agrees, he will reconsider a revised design, and that we would impose a demolition delay or a continuance to look at that delay. You know, there's two options on that. So just quickly, go around, you know, which option, unless you have a third, Janet, go. You can do both.
No, I'm with you, Frank. I don't have another option.
Okay. Bob?
This may be an option or not. Mr. Norcross, do you still have to go to zoning?
We do.
Is that listed now?
September 14th, we continued until that date currently.
Okay. I don't have another option, no.
Okay. Sorry.
I think we could do both quite easily. I think that I'm not opposed to Don's position. I would like to see a review, but at the same time, I think this, as Mr. Eckert said, that he's seen properties a lot worse than this that have been raised, that have been improved, they've been saved. Noting his expertise, I would like to hear that. But at the same time, if there was some alternative, such as incorporating a lot of what we're seeing into a new design, it would make me more happy than it is currently.
All right. Steph?
I was going to say exactly what Steve said.
Okay.
We could combine them.
Sandy?
It's starting to feel punitive to me. It sounds like we're being very punitive with this. I think that.
Well, just which option would you like to go for, Steph? Or a third?
I'd like to grant permission to take it down.
Demolish, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think I can make the discussion a little bit easier.
Go.
We're not going to agree to a continuance.
I'm sorry?
We're not going to agree to a continuance.
Yes, I understand that.
So, and you
I
can't
understand
impose a
that.
continuance without
I know
our
that,
agreement.
we can't oppose a continuance. So what we could do is either put a delay in with
I understand.
conditions in the delay.
And if I could just explain why. I mean, we come back in a month and then, or we come back in 2 months and then you're gonna run the demo delay from then. It's really
Understand.
not fair to my client at that point, just to
Understand.
keep extending, especially after last time we were here. We did everything that was asked in terms of allowing Jay Briggs
I
into the
got it.
property. Now you want somebody else to go into the property.
I
So
got it.
It's a little bit of a moving goalpost.
I got it. I'm trying to close it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, you interrupted my thought process. I think we have about 3 votes who want to just not let this thing, you know, just allow the applicant to proceed. We've got at least 4 votes, I think, to go into some kind of, what's the word? Some kind of compromise, okay? Which is to allow put a delay in the, not a continuance, Steve, okay? but a delay, a demolition delay, and we can contingent that demolition delay based upon the fact that the applicant is going to consider a redesign and come back to us. Steve, Jamie, listen to this. Come back to us in a certain period of time, and I want the applicant to understand, we can remove the delay at any time, okay? It's not forever, okay? And understanding what you gotta go through the boards. I think that would be a reasonable compromise. What do you say, Don? Want to move it?
Yes, I would like to move that the Historical Commission consider a 90-day demo delay with the understanding that the owner will reconsider a redesign to a more traditional building for this site, not to impose a demolition restriction, but for redesign. And
Okay.
and if, understanding we have no purview in design review, but just so that there's time enough to see if it's possible to have something more traditional on this property.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, could I just,
Conversation. No, hold
I
on,
just
hold on,
lo-
hold on. Let us get through it, or else we're never gonna get out of here. Okay, I just want to comment on Don's motion. I would support that motion, but you need to understand, although we don't have design review authority, we can't approve the design, but the purpose of a demolition delay is to get the applicant to reconsider something, to reconsider the delay or reconsider the design. So I think your motion is very appropriate, and I would support it. Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion?
I would not support it. I just want you to know that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Bob,
My opinion, or
would you support the application, the
for,
motion?
for a 90-day demolition delay? Yeah.
Okay. All right. We will now vote on the motion. You
could
have
I
something
just didn't hear the
germane?
last part of that motion, Mr. Chairman, that's all. I'm not trying to argue with you. I just didn't
I
hear
understand.
the specifics of the end of the motion. I couldn't hear. I didn't hear the last part of the motion that Mr.
Oh,
Aikman made. Was
okay.
it?
Basically, what and we can get the verbatim, but I'm gonna paraphrase it. The motion is a 90-day demolition delay, okay? The criteria for the demolition delay for 90 days is the applicant is agreeing, quotes, agreeing, we can't put a gun to his head, to take a look at the design, okay, and reconsider a new design, which is more tradition, Cape Cod design condition, tradition in that design.
Okay.
Effectively a 90-day delay, that's it. And you kind of give us a foot stomp that you would reconsider the design.
My client did say he would look at a redesign.
Between you and I, off the record, it's probably a good idea. I don't know if you're gonna get through zoning with that design, given what they're doing lately.
There's always hope.
There's what?
There's always hope.
There's always hope. Thank you very much. I'm trying to be on it. All right, we're gonna do a roll call. Mr. Aikman's motion. Mr. Lear.
Yes, I approve it.
Mr. Burlingame.
Just before I vote to approve.
Yes or no?
Just
Yes or no? Yes or no, please?
No.
You just killed it. Don?
Yes.
Steph?
No.
Sandy?
No.
Janet?
No.
Jesus Christ. And the chair votes yes. All right, there's no motion that passed. So we need another motion. Then the only motion appropriate at this point is to allow the demolition to proceed, unless you feel there's something else, guys. We'll make it more complicated.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the demolition of the property at 739 Kroll Road and hope that the owner, Mr. Wirtman, will take into consideration our concerns about the size of the building
You got
that
to
he
just quickly,
intends.
how long you want the demolition delay?
She doesn't want to
No?
no.
No delay?
No delay.
I'll second that.
We got a second to the delay, no motion for no delay, and a second. Any other discussion? Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, does this preclude the examination of the premises by Protect Our Past?
It's up to the applicant to allow that or not allow it.
Well, I guess it depends how the vote comes out. I mean, again, he's not trying to hide anything. He's not afraid to have people see the property. We've just done all this work already. And then having us do more, just, at some point, it needs to
Well,
end.
it's not you doing more, it's people that kind of work for us to make an independent decision regarding the integrity of the property.
All right, look, I don't think we can impose any other conditions on that. The applicant had indicated his previous comment with a motion that failed, that he would reconsider the design. Whether or not an applicant wants to allow somebody else in the property who's not part of the commission, that's a private thing. And so unless we make a separate motion for that effect, at this point, we have a motion on the floor to allow the demolition to proceed. And we have a second. So if there's no other comment, we're going to vote on that motion. Mr. Lear?
I still have a problem with the regulations that talk about the fact that this will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building. So we've already found it historically significant, and demolishing it will clearly diminish
Can I say that's a
that
no?
factor. So, yes, that's a no.
All right, Mr. Burlingame?
No.
Mr. Aikman?
No.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes no. So, the demolition, of straight demolition is not going forward. I would now ask Mr. Aikman to revisit where we thought we had a condition, to revisit your previous motion on a 90-day delay with the applicant agreeing to take a look at the design.
May I ask Mr. Aikman,
Pardon?
question? May I ask Mr. Aikman a question?
You let him make the motion, then we can have a discussion. All right?
So moved.
Second? I second the motion. Okay, discussion, yes.
Don, would you have considered 30 days, something other than 90 days? Could we amend it to 30 days? They're set to go to zoning and everything else. Why?
I would be very happy to consider 30 to 60 days, whatever the applicant feels is appropriate.
I move to amend Mr. Aikman's motion
Guys
that,
killing me.
that the demo delay be 30 days, allowing the owner to come back with some revised
All right, is there a
plans.
second for the 30 days?
I'll second that.
All right, motion second. This is a motion to vote on a 30-day demolition delay. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Mr. Burlingame?
No.
Mr. Aikman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
And the chair abstains.
Janet.
Janet, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have a motion to, which we need to put forward to 30-day delay. Oh, no, we're okay, we could do that. We're good, fine. This is ridiculous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
What a mess. Okay, we're gonna move along, guys. I don't know if we'll take a break. We may not have time. The next application is 72 Happy Valley. Let's see if we can get through this one. 23030, fully demolished, 72 Happy Valley Road. Who's presenting that application?
Online.
Oh, okay. Who's speaking for the application?
I believe he's muted. Is that Tamara, maybe?
I'm sorry? Can you hear me, sir? You're muted. Can you speak up? You're muted. We can't hear you.
He's not muted, but he's having a technical issue on his end.
I'm sorry?
He's having technical issue on his end.
We have a technical issue. Are you in Chatham?
On his end.
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yes.
can. All right, let's go.
All right, I'll try to make this brief. So Scott Bernard with Grady Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant Mark Hunt. I am the engineer and surveyor for this property. I've been helping him with the permitting process through the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health. What we're proposing to do here is to demolish the existing seasonal cottage. The applicant has owned this property for a little over 20 years now. He comes down here during the summers with his kids, and he's reached the age where he has decided that he would like to move down here permanently and make this his home. So in doing so, he's proposing to raise this existing cottage and construct a new single-family dwelling in its place. Again, we have met with the Board of Health, and we have been approved for the proposed new septic system. We've also met with the Conservation Commission on this property and reached an agreement on some different mitigation measures that we put in place here. So again, that this property is just an old cottage built in the 1940s. It's supported on some concrete sonotubes and some brick columns. I think many of you on the board here were at the site yesterday and saw the condition in which it's supported. And I'll keep it brief and open to questions.
I think we get the point. I think everybody was at the site visit, so I'm going to short circuit a few things here. The questions, sir, very simply, which we can eliminate it, was whether or not we feel the property is historically significant or not. So is there anybody here feels this property is historically significant? Seeing none, motion, please.
I move the Chatham Historical Commission finds that the building structure located at 72 Happy Valley Road is not historically significant because it does not meet any of the definitional criteria in section 158-2 A, B, or C of the bylaw. Therefore, the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Aikman. Any other comments or questions? I think we all agree it is not historically significant, so we can move forward. But it did meet the 75-year criteria, and that's why it's here for the public. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Mr. Burlingame?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Peter? Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Sorry to drag you out, but we have to go through that process. You can proceed. And I hope that
Thank you for your
your
time.
applicant will consider his comment that he made, that he was going to consider a traditional design, which I believe that was his intent, even though we don't have any drawings to that effect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
We're going to go rocket speed now, guys. 23031, 46 Scattery. Fully demolished, Mr. Riley. Put a little zip in your step. Mr. Riley? I move we move on, no. We'll probably take a break around 12:30 at the rate we're going, so, just so you know. And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, Bill Riley on behalf of Carolyn McDonald. We have this building, small cape. It was built back in the 30s. Steve Nickerson told a funny story at the site visit that one of his relatives built it in return for the right to use the bog down below. So, but they'd like to essentially remove the building and build a new building, very similar in design, but has modern design and will be more effective in terms of heat loss and,
Excuse me, Bill, did you say move the building?
no, remove the building,
Oh,
sorry.
remove, sorry about that. Got to plug the hearing aids in, buddy.
I thought he said that too.
You said move.
I did, but I had a re in front of it, I just,
All right.
I gotta
So I know my
enunciate.
hearing is not good, but I do pick up certain words. And the words are like demolish, remove, okay. Because we asked about moving the building, and he said, no, he didn't want to do it. Okay. All right.
In any event, so,
It's been a long day, Bill.
well, it's, yeah, anyway. Anyway, so they want to have modern construction. The property's been in the family for a couple hundred years. Carolyn McDonald, intends to keep it in the family for another 100 or so. She'd like to have a building that is much more efficient in terms of heating and cooling, and has higher ceilings and, it's just more accommodating for a modern family. And with all due respect to the age of the building, we don't think it's particularly significant or unique.
Okay?
That's it.
All right. Straightforward in some ways. There is no specific Form B for the property, except it was included in an area Form B, which has included most of the issue of Scattery as potential National Register district, but the previous boards, or this board, never acted upon that. So I'm talking about, from my view, the issue of eligible as a National Register building, but I don't know. Let's see what the opinion of the members of the commission are. Any questions of the applicant? Yes.
Has there been any consideration of keeping this and building around it?
I wasn't part of the conversation between Carolyn and Steve Nickerson, who's the builder, but I do not believe there was that form of consideration. I think those of you who know Steve Nickerson, he's a very methodical construction guy, and I think the fact that the framing's undersized by current standards, the insulation is not effective, that he felt from her perspective it was much more practical, considering the fact that the building is remaining virtually the same size and design, to build new. Although it's not surprising that a builder thinks you should build new, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, quickly? Well, do we have some sense of the building, where we want to go with this, relative if it's being eligible or not? Sandy?
And I don't have a feel for eligibility.
No?
No.
Steph?
No.
Steve?
No, I don't find that it is an issue at all. I would support the application.
Okay. Don?
I agree.
Jen?
I agree. It's an old, not very well built depression area, 1.5-story cape, so it's not, that's it, folks.
Thank you. Bob?
I agree.
Okay. All right. We seem to have a consensus relative to eligibility. So why don't we just quickly take a motion? Mr. Lear?
I move that the Chatham Historical Commission find that the building located at 46 Scattery Road is not historically significant because it does not meet any of the definitional criteria in section 158-2 A, B, or C of the bylaw. Therefore, the commission does not impose demolition delay.
Second.
We have a second by Janet. And Steve's phone. Okay. Bob?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck on that one. 230 Barcliff, application 23032. Oh, you look familiar.
Yeah. Last you see of me today. Jamie Norcross representing Robert and Donna Young. Robert and Donna are participating via Microsoft Teams. I can see them on the corner there. Robert and Donna purchased this property late last year, and their intent is to make this into their Chatham residence. We did not submit building plans, as you no doubt saw, as they are not yet completed. Their intent is to have a design that's very much in keeping with the neighborhood and historical nature of the property. They have been involved with a couple properties on Old Harbor Road that were well-received in terms of their design and neighborhood design characteristics, and in keeping with the neighborhood design, I should say. The structure, there is a Form B on file. It dates back to the early 20th century, according to the Form B in the assessor's records. Cape design. Again, it is certainly old, over 100 years. I don't know if it's necessarily very unique in that regard, or its design. There have been a couple additions to the property done over the course of time. The back porch area and deck, according to the building department file, was work that was done in the 1970s and 1980s. The barn that you see on the property now is not historic, according to the building department file. That was torn down in, I believe, 1974 and then rebuilt in the early 1980s. I believe Bob and Donna would, if a demolition delay is imposed, would come back with the plans once they're completed, allow the commission with the ability to review those. They do think they'll be well received once they're completed. But that would be our presentation, and myself and the Youngs are happy to answer any questions.
All right. As indicated by Mr. Norcross, yes, this building has a Form B. Form B was completed and updated again on 2016 by Eric Dre. The building was built probably around 1925, which means in 2 years it would be 100 years old. What makes something historic? That's the question before us. It's obviously, in my opinion, a very nice building and in really good shape. And so, I don't know, why we're doing this, and that's a good question for a very perfectly nice historic building, but, that's Chatham right now. So let's try to deal with the issue of historical integrity first, and then we can move along from that. Do we feel this building, we don't have any correspondence or anything on this building, no applicants for or against it? So let's deal with the issue of historical integrity. Janet?
I think it's a lovely historic home, a classic example of early 20th century, full cape, fits nicely into the historical neighborhood. It is in a neighborhood of a lot of historical homes. Some of them are being renovated, and fortunately, the owners are taking into consideration the style of a Cape Cod home and trying to fit in. I think it'd be a shame to demolish it, and would encourage the owners to restore it in a way that achieves their goal, frankly.
Okay, good. Bob?
I agree, Janet. I think it meets the criteria for historically significant, not only in terms of age and Cape design, but also some persons who have lived there who are significant for the social history of the town.
Okay, I agree with both of those comments. Don?
I concur.
Steve?
I disagree.
Okay. Stephanie?
Yes, I agree.
Sandy?
I agree.
All right, we seem to have a consensus. Why don't we get a quick motion here, if we can? To historical integrity.
I move that the Chatham Historical Commission find that the building located at 230 Barcliff Avenue is historically significant because it is in whole or in part 75 years old or more. It's associated with one or more historical persons in the town, the history of the town, and it possesses architectural value in terms of its period, style, and significant construction.
Okay, we have a second? John?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, we're going to take a motion on the historical integrity of 230 Barcliff. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And Mr. Messina, chair votes yes. Okay. This is a tough one for us here, Jamie, but I guess in this particular point, my druthers here is to do what the demolition delay does, is to impose a certain level of a delay and get the applicants to think hard about what the heck they're doing. Okay?
Yes.
So I think we have consensus. I don't want to drag it out anymore. Bob?
Just, Jamie, the same question I had before. Does this go to zoning? If so, when?
We have not filed for zoning. We don't have plans done yet, so.
Okay, so it would be sometime in September, October, or?
October would be the best case scenario, probably
Okay.
even later at this
Okay.
point.
Do we want to propose a motion to delay the demolition? Don?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we have a 18-month demo delay for a purpose, and imposing it is not punitive, it's to give time for reconsideration. And I would propose imposing an 18-month demo delay on this property.
I'll second that.
Okay, that was a motion and second by Stephanie to impose a full 18-month delay to give the applicant time to really think about what they're doing. Okay, any other comments? All right, I'm going to take a roll call. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
Ms.
but I.
Janet?
Yes.
Yes, and the chair votes yes. Let's keep the comments short. We're going to never get out of here. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry, Jamie, you know, but very seriously, I think at some particular point, if the applicant wants to come back and talk to us, you know,
Yeah, when the plans are done, I think we'll certainly.
okay? If that's where we're going with it, but,
Absolutely.
you
Okay,
know, the demolition delay is in effect.
thank you.
All right, we're going to move along
Can
here.
I just make a quick comment?
Yes, sir.
I think this application is significant in the respect that Chatham is full of these houses. I don't see
Mr.
anything.
Burlingame, I understand where you're going, you're absolutely right, and we've got it on our agenda, you know, for future discussion of 75 years or 100 years and that criteria. I agree with you, but right now,
Because I think there's a period of time, and this is in the
Yes.
middle of that period.
Absolutely.
Where the properties were pretty much vernacular, they were not
and
particularly unique.
I don't disagree with you, but we need to think about that and formally discuss it.
Thank you.
Guys, it's 12 o'clock. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applications. Do you want to take a break? I do. And my voice is, I'm losing it.
I'll be brief, Mr.
About a
Chair.
half hour. Somebody in the audience is laughing.
Mike said he would be brief.
What was that?
The applicant said he would be brief.
He would be brief.
Barry,
No, this is a remodel. This is gonna have to we're gonna take a half hour, what's it called, a continuance?
But yeah, we can take a break. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna take a half hour break, and we'll continue at 12:30 sharp. Thank you very much.
All right, I am going to run upstairs.
Are we still on the air?
this, yeah.
But this is just, you know, they just want to go.
This was teetering on administrative possibly, so.
Yeah, I could see, it should have been, I think, administrative.
Yeah, they were just doing big.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. This is Frank Messina. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. This is Frank Messina. We're continuing the July 18th meeting 2023 of the Chatham Historical Commission. The next application is 93 Scattery Road, 23033. We have the applicant representative here. I believe he's online.
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Could you just introduce yourself, sir?
Sure, Mike Tartamella, Patrick Ahern, architect.
Could you just speak up a
Here
bit?
Sure, Mike Tartamella, Patrick Ahern, architect, for 93 Scattery Road. Apologize, I'm not there in person today, but I'll be brief. I think the project has a pretty straightforward scope. And I'm happy to share my screen, or Christina, if you want to run slides, either way, whatever's easier, let me know.
You can run your own slides if you'd like, but we are
Okay.
prepared to also.
Okay, why don't I bring this, I'll just share this screen. So I'm sure you're familiar with the area, but 93 Scattery was originally built in actually 1742. The house has a pretty extensive history, and there's no question of its historical significance. There's also a guest house on the property. However, the guest house was built much later in the 1980s. This is the house as it sits today on the property. And basically what we're before you today for is we are going to be replacing the foundation under the portion of the house that's shaded. And when I say replacing, we intend to hold the house in its current location and replace the foundation in the area that's shaded. There is currently a crawl space, more of a Cape Cod basement in these other areas that you see here. There's a Cape Cod basement kind of here, and the ceiling height's only about 6'2". And the intent here is that we're looking to preserve the existing structure that's under here and basically put in a new weather-tight crawl space to be able to run some new systems, and also extend the longevity of the structure so that it does not deteriorate. There's currently a brick foundation, somewhat pier foundation that's there right now, but we're not looking to lift the house. We're not looking to have any collateral damage on the interior or exterior, but we're simply looking to keep the house in its location and put a basement under, a crawl space underneath it there. In addition to that, there's 2 new window locations for new openings. One of them is here on the north elevation, which is a new window that we're going to be locating based on how the interior floor plan was modified. And there's another location here just on an interior sort of west-facing wall. And in terms of locations on the plan, there's 2 locations that those windows are. This is the west-facing one, and this is the new window on the east-facing one. Along with that, just for full disclosure on the property, they're going to be doing new exterior shingles, new windows on the house, all in existing locations, and there's going to be a new wood roof put on the house as well. And I just also like to point out and note that all of the existing chimneys will remain.
Say that again?
All of the existing chimneys will remain.
All the chimneys.
Everybody's a comedian.
Know the audience, Mr. Chair, know the audience.
Well, I appreciate that that comment. This is kind of straightforward. You done, sir?
Yeah, I think that really wraps it up. It's really just to put a crawl space underneath, and I think based on that square footage of area, that's what sort of triggered our review here today,
Okay.
along with the age of the house.
Well, I'll tell you, it's really interesting that the house all these years existed with that current situation of this, being so low to the ground. And what you're doing should hopefully extend the life of this thing for at least another 100 years, if not more. And I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure the members of the board appreciate, the investment on such a significantly historic property in 1742. Okay, I think we have hopefully a straightforward situation relative to its historic significance. Good, Don.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. You're replacing the windows. Are you replacing the frames which appear to be protruding as old windows did in the 1700s?
What you're seeing protruding there, I believe, are the storm windows. And the new windows would be new, higher performing double hung Pella Architect Series windows with simulated divided light. Typically what we would use in a historic district for a more updated performance window. I think what you're seeing there are the storm windows that were installed after, but they would all be new construction windows, not replacement windows.
So you're not replacing the framing, just the windows?
Well, the exterior casing would get replaced in kind, but we're not altering any framing to do that. The window sizes aren't changing or anything like that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Is that the same with the roof? It's being the same type of roof? I'm hearing so many different types of roofs today. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Red cedar. Yeah, red cedar shake roof.
okay. Can we deal with historical significance first? Mr. Lear?
Yep. I move that the Chatham Historical Commission finds that the building located at 93 Scattery Road is historically significant because it is in whole or in part 75 years old or more, and it's associated with one or more historical persons or events of the town and the Commonwealth, and it possesses architectural value or significance in terms of its period, style, and method of construction.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Any members of the public wish to speak for or against the application? Okay, we're going to do a roll call on historical significance. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, I think they've done a pretty good job. They're learning how to submit an application. I guess you have a little experience in that, right? So unless there's any other comments, questions of the applicant, we could entertain a motion relative to a delay or not?
Chatham Historical Commission also finds the proposed work to be done dated June 5th, 2023 will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Second by Steve. Okay, any other comments? Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
How
it.
is Stage Harbor Road coming?
Well, right now we've elevated the house, and we're sort of shut down for the no build period. But they have elevated the structure, and we've removed all of the material inside. We're ready to proceed as soon as the moratorium lifts.
I should tell all the people who are calling me just to call you.
What's wrong?
Oh, you can guess. But
Well, for what it's worth,
yes,
I can say this too. You
got to crack the
and I
egg.
know that it's always the conditions that you impose, and I think that I get it, but the builder actually has asked me a number of times the homeowner owns the property next door, and they would be the one that would be most impacted by construction. So unfortunately, with it shutting down for the summer, the house is kind of being held there. But it is one of these sites where all traffic could be off the street, and construction could maintain and keep going, and they could put the house back down and even be held to doing work on the interior. But as part of the conditions, they stopped construction at the date that was requested.
I didn't realize
So-
that. So zoning stopped you completely.
Yeah, that's their typical conditions that they impose.
Well,
So,
good luck on that one.
and, yeah, but we'd love to keep it going and get the house back down on a stable foundation, but we're shut down for the time being.
Well, I kind of tell people, just relax, wait, but they're not. All right, well, thank you very much, Steve.
All right.
Mike, sorry
Thank you
about
all.
that.
Thanks very much. No
All
problem.
right, next application
Thanks,
is
Mr. Chair.
23034, 58 Whistler Lane. I think that's Mr. Riley. Hope you're getting some work done back there.
I'm riveted by the activity up here, so I couldn't possibly get any work done.
Please introduce yourself formally.
So good afternoon, Bill Riley, on behalf of Eileen Ryan. So this is a property that was built in 1948. Was built as a standard cape. My client has lived on the adjoining property for 70 years and has reported to me that the property's never been used as anything but a summer house. As far as we know, no persons of historical significance to the town of Chatham have lived there. There's nothing remarkable about the construction, and we would ask that it be deemed not historically significant.
Anything else?
Well, if you vote it's not historically significant, there's nothing else to talk about.
What's your opinion?
I don't think it's historically significant because first of all, and I know it's not on a street, so it's not visible to the general public. The design is a standard cape design with doghouse dormers. So there's nothing unique about it. And then it was added on with that long wing, which is great for summer living, looking out at the water, sitting on their deck. Eileen would like to, again, build a modern house. The design will be very similar, but comply with all current building codes and be more suitable for year-round residents, which is how she plans to use it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right, any questions on the comment or on the application relative to its historical significance? None. All right, I guess I agree, Mr. Lear.
Get the right page. Move that Chatham Historical Commission finds its building located at 58 Whistler Lane is not historically significant because it does not meet any of the definitional criteria in section 158-2 A, B, or C of the bylaw. Therefore, the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Second by Janet. Any other comments? Members of the public? For or against? Okay, Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Was that a yes down there?
Yes.
The whisperer. Janet? Yes?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much, Ralph.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, 322 Bridge Street. All right, I guess we got to go this way. All right, 322 Bridge Street, 23035, application. For the members of the public, this application is, also for members of the commission. The question, people, why are we hearing this? Well, the Historical Commission imposed a full demolition delay in August 2021, and the application was imposed, and it was expired in February 2022. That determination holds until August 17, 2023, and the applicant is back because I guess he's not going to start the work before the application, the determination expires. So that's why we're here. And no plans giving. We obviously don't have anybody here. Who's in the audience?
He was here earlier.
I know.
I wonder where he went.
Is the applicant here? All right, if the commission would allow me, I'm going to put this aside.
Good.
And hopefully he will return and not prejudice him. This is an unusual meeting. Annie, do you mind just checking the hall? It's Mr. Benacasa, what is it? Benacasa. Son of a gun, I just realized that.
He was here.
No, that was the name of my first girlfriend. Anyway. She was Italian. Anyway. Okay.
Could you explain again why we're here again?
Say again?
I'm confused.
Okay, no, it's all right. The applicant, was before us. We imposed just 180 day, not 18-month delay. So that delay expired in February 2022. After then the applicant has, because of the rules of the building department, 2 years?
It's our rules and regulations, but they have 2 years to act upon the determination.
Gotcha, okay,
If they don't, then they come back before us.
okay.
So he's currently before zoning. Nobody there? Do you mind making a call, Annie? I don't want to go through this again. All right, the next application would then be, excuse me, sorry,
Mr. Litchfield has his hand up, maybe he's representing, I'm not
Mr. Litchfield?
sure. Online.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Bill, are you there?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Before you move on to the next matter, thank you. If I could just briefly be heard on 322 Bridge Street. I very much enjoy spending time with you. But having spent 2.5 hours waiting for this matter to be heard, is it anticipated that I should spend more time waiting, or is this going to be continued to a date certain?
No, are you representing 322 Bridge Street?
No, quite the contrary. I'm representing abutters.
Representing what?
Abutters, neighbors.
Buyers.
No,
concerns.
Abutters. Oh, I apologize, Mr. Litchfield. It's difficult to hear, and the microphone doesn't help us. Well, I want to give the applicant a little bit of a chance. He was here, and of course of the unfortunate nature of this meeting so far, I asked the representative, the assistant, Annie Hayes, to go out and see if she can find him and give him a call. So could you bear with me another 20 minutes or so?
All right, if we'll stand by, and I thank you. I just wanted to know whether this would be continued until the end of your session or until after the next hearing. And
Well,
I presume after
if
the
he
next
doesn't
hearing.
show up with the next 2 applications, which should be pretty quickly, then we'll continue it. I guess we're allowed to do that because we don't have sufficient information. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, application 163 George Ryder Road, 23036. Is the representative Chris Cannon? Chris?
He's online.
Chris is online? Can you see him?
Is it Chris Cannon?
Jay Cannon is him.
Chris, are you there? I'm putting this aside until we make contact with Mr. Cannon. Can you go offline, give him a call?
Yes.
Okay. Application 23037, 671 Old Harbor Road. I told you to stay home and listen on the radio.
Yeah, I was right down the road.
All right. Okay. again, 671 Old Harbor Road. It's actually a pleasure to get this application. Do you mind introducing yourself and give us a little bit of history?
Yep, Sean Henry with SV Design, representing the owners at 671 Old Harbor Road. The owners purchased this house a little while ago and intend to keep the historic nature. They do want to bring the kitchen up to current standards, and part of that, we are looking for a partial demolition on the rear part of the building, replacing some windows, trim, and siding associated with those areas. We feel that it's in keeping with the nature of the house, and hope you think the same.
All right. I have to say, for those of us, and I think we all attended the site visit, it was an absolute delight to visit this home and see the work that has been done over the years. And it's a beautiful historic structure. It was in 1852, and the owners and the current owners are doing a significant job to keep it in good condition and livable. And it's probably a good example, if we're going to give out awards, for which we do, by the way, as you know, for homes which are restored and maintain their historical integrity. So I don't think there's any question about its historic integrity or historical significance. Mr. Lear?
I move the Chatham Historical Commission finds that the building located at 671 Old Harbor Road is historically significant because it is in whole or in part 75 years old or more, and it's associated with historical persons and political history of the town and possesses architectural value or significance in times of period, style, and method of construction.
I'll second.
All right, second by Janet.
Steph.
Any other comments?
Second by
Oh,
Steph.
Steph, sorry. All right, we're going to do a roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Sorry. Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, I think we're in violent agreement here relative to the work that is being done. Mr. Lear?
Yeah, I'm just looking for a date on the plans, but
Date on the plan, Steve? Sean?
I got it, never mind. Tiny little print. Chatham Historical Commission also finds the work to be done dated June 20th, 2023 will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Second by Don. Any other comments, questions? Member of the public? Thank you. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet? The
Yes.
chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you
know,
for your time.
I was not kidding. You're familiar with the Chatham's Preservation Award process?
Yes. Yep.
And this is an ideal house. I think we'd love to see it be recognized. Considering what we've gone through today, it would be nice to to allow us something positive, you know, in our work here. We didn't have one last year, or this year actually, but we will probably next year if I can convince one of the members of the commission to join me on the Preservation Awards Committee. But think
We'll
about it.
definitely take it into consideration.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. I see somebody in the audience. Why don't you come forward, Mr. Cannon? We're going to do 23036. Did we find Mr.?
We tried to call to, Mr. Benincasa, there was no answer.
No answer. Okay. We have an application 23036, 163 George Ryder Road South. And this is a partial demolition modification. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Chris Cannon, representing the Helbergs. I just want to say you guys must be getting soft in your youth.
I'm sorry?
You must be getting soft in your youth. After the hour and a half I had to sit through, And then all of
You
a sudden,
didn't have to
bang,
sit.
bang, bang.
You could have gone home and listened then.
Had to walk the dogs. You know my dogs.
I know.
Okay, so this is fairly simple. It's a pretty small house, and amazing that any people could be comfortable in a house that small in today's world. So they're just looking to add a room to it, and the demo associated with it is essentially an entry that's on the back of the house, oddly, and it's just like a small porch roof. And we have designed this addition to be as sort of underwhelming as possible to the existing building. It's rather difficult because we do have a dormer up above with windows that we needed to keep. So I tried to keep the volume small, and as best in keeping with this house, there weren't too many options for where we could add to it. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay. Well, it was delightful to visit and meet the owner.
Yeah, I apologize for missing that one, too.
That's okay.
Again, dogs.
Yeah. Well, he has one too. Anyway, this house was not 75 years old when the survey was done, so that it was not on the town list and was not listed in the National Register District. So the question really is, do we consider this house to be historically significant? Any comments or questions from the members? Bob, what's your thoughts?
I guess I could go either way with it.
Yeah.
And I would add that I don't think that the proposed activities that Mr. Cannon just discussed do significantly diminish its historical significance.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Steve, you raised your hand. Yes, sir.
Totally irrelevant question, but is there a second floor on the new addition?
No, it's all one story.
Okay,
It's one big room there. It just has two roofs on it.
okay.
Okay, anybody else want to opine on the historical significance issue? Everybody's quiet. Okay,
Could ask Mr. Cannon if he has any information about the structure or the method of construction, et cetera, that would indicate
It's not at all unusual. I mean, it's sort of typical. I don't even remember what year it was, 40-something. But the one thing I can say, I looked in Google, or actually, I think it was the commission's website. And when there was nothing else around, it was there.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean much. All the rest of the houses are all pretty new. So, but it's a nice house. It's a very small house. It needs more room in it. We're not proposing to do much in the way of demo. So, is it significant? I don't know. In terms of people who live there, I wouldn't say. Pretty sure George Washington was never there.
all right. Well, I agree. It's a little bit unique, but I don't know about the historical significance, so that's my view of it. So I would say no, but I don't know how other people feel. Bob?
I'll go with a no.
Okay.
Ready for it?
Yes, sir.
I move the Chatham Historical Commission find that the building located at 163 George Ryder Road South is not historically significant because it does not meet any of the definitional criteria in section 158-2, A, B, or C of the bylaw. Therefore, the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Second by Stephanie. Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions, public? Okay. Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks.
It's Chris, sorry. Okay, I would entertain a motion at this particular time that we continue 322 Bridge Street to our August 15th meeting. As the applicant is not here, but I apologize to the applicant. This was a very long meeting and certainly understandable. Okay, having said that, if somebody would second that motion, we could move on.
I'll second.
Second by Stephanie. So we're going to continue the motion. I think it's perfectly appropriate. If no other comments, Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Steph,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Janet? And
Yes.
the chair votes yes. All right, just quickly, I promise. PAL is proceeding the work on the archaeological survey report. I hope to have something to present you in the August meeting, at least a status report of where she is. Holly Herbster, the archaeologist, has also agreed at the conclusion of her work, probably in the spring sometime, she'll do a presentation similar to what she did, Don, the first time we had her. And she make a presentation. We could make that like a townwide presentation to the community through this meeting of, you know, the results of the archaeological survey. It would be, trust me, it would be very interesting. In addition to that, Eric Dre, who's updating our survey plan and the Form Bs, he's updating the survey, and he's going to be meeting with us in our August meeting with the intention of where do we go? You know, we don't have money. There's a lot of homes that we haven't completed surveys on, which he, you know, the last time when he did the survey, he put no. It wasn't no because the house was not worthy. It was just a lower priority. We're getting into the issue, Mr. Burlingame, of his issue, you know, whereas where do we draw the line relative to spending money to document a house of its historical significance? And I think what Eric is doing is very important, because we could start to answer some of the questions of River Bay, the cottage communities, you know, things that some of us may think, well, that's really historically significant. Maybe not the individual cottage, but the fact that there are 50 of these cottages and there's, you know, that kind of element. Eric is you know, obviously a professional preservationist. He's had a lot of experience, so he can give us some guidance. So, you know, that's what I hope to do at the August meeting. Unfortunately, we've got 5 applications also. The archaeological update of the cemeteries, Dan Zotto, I've had 2 meetings with him. We met him, he's a nice young fellow, he's doing a lot of work. I actually did some, not field work, I met him in the Old North Cemetery. I never realized, you know, how big those were. And quite honestly, there used to be a church up there and a meeting house. And that's why those cemeteries there, the Old North and the Old South. We hope to find the location of that meeting house or that church. And in addition, Dan Zotto and myself met with the Cemetery Commission. Her name is Dee. I can never pronounce the last name, and neither could Christina. Dee, she's like she's the administrator for the secretary for the Cemetery Commission. The Cemetery Commission has reorganized. David Whitcomb is now chair. They're doing a lot of work, and they have volunteers who are actually documenting every gravestone in the town of Chatham. In other words, who's there? Or there's nobody there. We don't know where they're there. And that information is being incorporated possibly into our Form Es, for the cemetery. So when we're done, we're going to have I think, a very comprehensive look at the cemeteries in Chatham. For instance, we found good old Colonel Godfrey's, gravestone. You know, so there are a lot of interesting, important people to the town. Mr. Sears Point. You know, so there are those kinds of things. Not that we're going to erect another monument for it, but we're going to document that these things exist and where they exist. The other thing, which is quite interesting, is ground penetrating radar. Apparently, the Cemetery Commission in Harwich has one. You know, because there's a lot of places where there are graves, but there are no gravestones. Why? Because the gravestones were stolen, okay? Or they disappeared, but there are still graves there. And in some cases, we know who's there. In some cases, there's nobody there. So the Cemetery Commission potentially is going to look into that, into maybe borrowing or even purchasing a ground penetrating radar to use that. It can be useful not only relative to graves, but also other things like trying to find the Old North Church. You know, where is it? You know, where was it, so to speak? Anyway, so it's kind of interesting, and I hope to turn all of this over to our good friend, Mr. Burlingame, you know, to follow up on some of this stuff. And I appreciate you taking the lead on that, Steve. Last but not least, demolition by neglect. I mean, we have prime examples of this today. And, you know, really, even the applicant, and from Mr. Norcross said, you know, it's bad. So Ryan Christenberry, who's the principal planner, who was just here a couple of minutes ago but left, has been tasked by me and the commission, you guys, to take a hard look. She is preparing a staff report, which we should have in August. And she's looked into it, and what she wants to do is provide us some guidance and some recommendations how to proceed. Generating a demolition by neglect bylaw is pretty simple. The question is, what do you do with it, and how do you enforce it?
That's right.
Tough questions, right, Steph?
Very tough question.
And she's leaning towards the idea to encourage the town to somehow fund something. In other words, if you're gonna tell somebody they have to replace their roof, but they can't afford to replace the roof, you know, how do we do that? And I know I did this in another town, where the town has a fund where they come in and they put the new gutters in, or they replace the roof, and they put a lien on the house. Not everybody who does this is doing it on purpose. In other words, it's just things that happen because families get into situations that they can't do things. You know, they just don't have the means, and where the town can be assisting. Anyway, I'm pontificating here, but she's gonna put together a staff manual so we have something. And quite honestly, guys, we're not gonna do this. You know, what we have to do is kind of shovel it over to the planning board or to the town and say, town fathers, you gotta do something about this. So, enough of my speech. 184 Barcliff is the only open demolition delay we have, and there are no administrative review ratifications. So I hopefully will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
Second.
Any other comments? All right. Robert, have you left us? I just realized you did. I forgot to introduce him again. All right, we're going to do a roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Stiff?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you.